Hi parents, I hope you guys had a wonderful week. It flew by this week. The kids were awesome. We had a great week in both the mornings and afternoon classes. I'm here to do our summary again so you know what we did this week. So we looked at, actually we spent a lot of time on books this week. Lots around Peace and Remembrance Day, and then again on the topic of myself and who I am. So we had this one and it was I Like Myself. One of my favorite books. It's a great one if you have a collection of books at home and you want to add some A+ ones. So it's all about liking yourself on both the inside and the outside, and liking yourself for all that you do and who you are. We looked at, and again this is because we're doing our All About Me books. Then we looked at When I Grow Up. One part of our book will be what do we want to be when we grow up. So it looked at all the different things you could be when you grow up. And it's pretty much a mom and her son having this conversation before bed, and she tells him you can be anything you want, whatever you want to dream, whatever you could dream to be, whatever you want. So that was a really cute book. It was funny when we were reading the book, the kids were like, yep, I'll be that, and I'll be that, and I'll be that. So it's really cute to see, and some of them had things like doctors, dentists, astronauts, builders, nurses. So it was really exciting to see the kids already thinking about what they want to be when they grow up. Then we looked at Remembrance Day books. For me, Remembrance Day is a really important holiday, and it's really close to my heart. So I spend a lot of time talking about it with my kids, and I think it's so important that these next generations understand the importance of Remembrance Day and what these soldiers and the people of that time did for us. I think with each generation and as time goes on, naturally, we start to forget, and I think it's very important to emphasize Remembrance Day and how important it is to take those moments during that weekend to remember those soldiers and all the people that were involved. So we read a book, the book called A Poppy Is to Remember, and I actually read it. It was like a Google Read Aloud book on the board, and it was our mayor who was actually reading the book, and it was all about, it's a really kid-friendly way of explaining what happened and why it happened. The symbol of the poppy, it has Flanders Field, the poem in here. So it really was a beautiful book, and we spent some time talking about it and the importance of Remembrance Day and why we have it. And the kids were very respectful, and they listened well, so I was really impressed by that. Then we looked at, and we really talked about the symbol of the poppy. It's important that kids understand different holidays and different times of the year are associated with different symbols. So Halloween's very easy to understand, Christmas is easy to understand, but I wanted them to understand that the poppy and wearing it on your left side is a symbol of Remembrance Day, and we talked about obviously why it is, and that was because of the army doctor who wrote the poem in Flanders Fields. And so we looked at that poem specifically, and we even talked about what do some of these words mean, like larks are a type of bird, or between the crosses row on row, what does that mean? Because that's a very complex poem for a 5-year-old to understand. But I think if you introduce these things at a young age and you continue to repeat it through the grades, that they do naturally begin to understand it and to personalize it and to really think about it. Then we looked at the book, What Does Peace Feel Like? And this talked about all our feelings, so taste, smell, feel, sight, what are our senses? Taste, smell, see, feel, and listening and hearing. Oh my gosh, sorry, it's been a long week. So we looked at this, and it was a really beautiful book. The imagery in the book about for each sense. So what does peace smell like? Like a bouquet of flowers in a happy family's living room. What does peace look like? It looks like a cat and dog curled up together in a basket. So this was really important for language building with the students. And what we did was, with our morning group, just because we had that extra day, we got them into groups, and each group had to sit at a table and draw pictures of what peace tasted like, what it smelled like, what it would feel like, etc. And again, this is really important for language building and expanding their vocab, and especially for my students who English is a second language for them. So very important for language building, imagery, details. So that was I don't know if that was their favorite activity, but it was an important activity. Then we looked at our focus bins for the week. Our 4 focus bins, we had my heart map, which had to do with this book. So the students, again, a part of their All About Me book, created their own heart maps. So they had to draw their hearts and all the things that are in, they had to draw a heart and all the things that are important, and then draw what was important to them in their heart. So I talked about the things in your heart are different for everyone. What's in my heart isn't going to be what is in their heart, because I have a different life, I have a different family, I've had different experiences. So what's important to me is different to what's important to them, and between the peers as well. So I wanted them to understand that. So they put a lot of thought into the things that went into their heart. So they drew those pictures, and then with my support, they labeled them. Some kids did a great job of sounding out the first sound in words. Some were able to even sound out words on their own. So it's really great to see. And again, it's very differentiated. Every child's on their own learning curve, and every child's going at their own pace. So again, it was a support of me, but that they were able to sound these words out. But I want the kids to start understanding it, and for us as teachers to model it, and for parents at home to model that as well. Then we looked at, okay, we had an alphabet roll. So what the kids had to do is, again, we're looking at uppercase versus lowercase letters. So they had to roll their lowercase alphabet dice, and whatever letter it landed on, so in this case P, they'd have to find the uppercase and then draw the lowercase next to it. Or if it landed on R, so they had to fill up their whole board. Now we also used our alphabet board at the back, and we put the kids near there so they had the support of the uppercase and lowercase visuals. Then we looked at math, and we did our 1 to 6 square. So the kids had to roll their dice, count their numbers, so 3, and then on their piece of paper, draw their 3. Again, we did this last week, but this time I had it on as a focus bin, so it was laminated so they could erase it as they needed. And again, it's that repetition of the numbers. I want it to become very natural and very quick for them. Then we looked at 1, 2, 3, poppies. The students had to, I should have brought our wreath in. They had to, this week, cut out, and they had the choice of either coloring or doing tissue paper poppies. And then we took all our poppies and we put it on a wreath to bring it to the celebration, and it actually looked really beautiful. I wish I had it in here, but I don't. The kids enjoyed this bin, actually. A lot of students asked if they could do 2 or 3. Again, I always give them the option of different mediums in art. Some colored them, some did tissue paper. I also had ones who did oil pastels with their poppies. Then we looked at this week the letter H, how to properly form it, and its sound. So of course we did our letter books, and the kids are doing absolutely amazing with them. And it's really one of my favorite times of the day. They're very calm and quiet, and they take it very seriously, which is really nice to see. And then we looked at, just so you understand, again, parents, for the formation, so we're using the same language at school and at home. We go down the slide, and we go across in the middle. And they know that if you are writing on a dotted line, that you have to go across on that dotted line. And then for the lowercase h, we go down the slide, back up the same slide with a bump, and they understand that the bump starts and has to stay under that dotted line. It's easier, honestly, parents, for the kids to go down and back up, because then you don't have that kind of awkward space like this. So when they go down the slide, their expectation is to go back up with a bump, and it just eliminates kind of like this from happening, or one of those. So they know they have to, this space, so it doesn't happen, they know they have to go back up that same slide. And then letter H, we looked at our Jolly Phonics videos and our Have Fun Teaching videos, and the sound that it makes is, so we know hat, house, hammer, home. It's again really important for the kids to be able to know their sounds quickly, because that's what they need to read and to write. So if it'd be great at home if you can continue listening to those videos and talking about words that start with the letter H. And then we did some art this week. So of course we did Remembrance Day art with oil pastels, and the kids got to do, I showed them, we actually went onto the computer and we looked at different images of poppies, and we talked about them, and I wanted the students to, again, be creative and come up with their art that was personalized, that was their own. There are times when we do art that's guided and that's all the same, but in this case I really wanted to see their ideas come out and their creativity, and to see, were they thinking about the books that we talked about? Were they able to keep in mind images, for example, having crosses in the dirt, or having a gold hat on the cross to represent the soldiers, because some kids in my past classes and some kids even this year were able to do things like that, which tell me that they are thinking about what we talk about. So this was some of these were some of the art work. So field of poppies. This child did longer stem poppies. And this one was actually really beautiful. This student was able to tell me that she drew a soldier. These were hills and these were her poppies, and it was a setting sun. So it was really beautiful to see kind of the thought that went into this from that student. And then just a couple activities this week. Parents, we do this every single morning with words or names. We do it on my easel, but we write down a name. We always talk about that the first letter is an uppercase letter. The rest are lowercase, of course. And then we break down the letters. And the kids have to tell me the letter name and whether it's a small letter, a letter that's tall, or a letter that falls. So for example, I'd pick a student, they'd tell me, okay, O, and I'd ask them, okay, what is O? And they'd tell me it's a small letter. So we'd do a small box. Then I'd pick another student, they'd tell me, okay, maybe they'd pick the letter Y, and they'd have to tell me that it's a letter that falls. So we would do this until the whole name is filled up. So at the end of the day, it would look something like this. N is a small letter, and T and H are letters that are tall. This is super fun and super easy for, well, maybe not so super fun, but it's very easy to do at home with different words. If you pick like letter H words, okay, let's look at the word hammer. Can you tell me which letters are tall, which ones fall, and which ones are small? It's very easy, but that repetition will help. And then you can also talk about how many letters are in the word. So one, we always count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's going to be very important that they understand that letters make up words and words make up sentences. So that's why we do things like this. It seems simple, but in the grand scheme of things, it's complex. Okay, then lastly, parents, we are going to be doing a lot of these kind of match and cover mats in the near future. So what the kids have to do is, there's a color code, so A is red, B is blue, C is green, and D is yellow. Again, I'd have a different mat for E to G. But the kids would have to find an image, so they could start wherever they want. They might say button. So what letter does button start with? B, so they'd have to put a blue on it. Candle starts with C, so they'd have to put a green. Dice starts with D, so they'd have to put a yellow. And then they'd cover up their mat. So anyways, this again is important for initial sounds, because when we learn to sound out our words, we begin with the initial sound. Then we go to the final sound, and then we start to work on stretching the middle sounds. So that's how we teach our kids to sound out and write. And of course, this is very, very early on in the year. I'm not saying that we're even remotely close to being there, but I just want to give you a heads up of different games that we do in the classroom. Reminders, my parents, for next week. No school on Monday because it's Remembrance Day. Label everything. Now it's winter season, so they have their hats, their gloves, their boots. They have a million things in here, and you know how crowded my boot room area is. So please label everything, because once it's labeled, it's easy for us to get back to you guys. And I'd hate for the kids to be without a scarf or gloves, especially on the weekend when they're gone for a longer period of time. And then next week, parents, we're going to be looking at All About Me, looking at some more writing, Best Part of Me project, rhyming in syllables, so breaking up words at the greater level, and then we're going to begin our Winter Wonderland. So I hope you guys have a wonderful long weekend. I hope you get to relax and enjoy it, stay warm, and we'll see you next week.